for all the match strikers.
This is Spiritual Pyro.
Summer. I feel like this is like summer brain right now. We're like, what day is it?
These are summer episodes.
These are summer episodes. Low stakes.
But kind of
Low
like
stakes.
All of our episodes are summer episodes.
I mean, we're kind of summer girls, I feel like. I don't know what that means, actually.
Yeah. It's like, can someone tell me where I can get it together? As if there's anything that's not like summer brain.
It's just like brain now. I don't know if that's midlife. I don't know if that's what that is. The day and age
I don't even care to explain it. I don't even just, like I said last time, I'm not even going to Google it. Like, I don't even care to explain it. It just is how it is. So
it's just true.
It's just true. It's just accurate. Okay. Hi. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation today. I know you are too. And so let's jump in.
Okay. Well, I think even coming out of the last conversation we had talking about, you know, the work of being safe enough for yourself and how that is so vital and important for any type of relationship that, you know, we step into as people. We've got to have that safety with ourselves. And I've just been thinking about that all week and thinking about how true that feels really in every dynamic of, you know, relationship from the friendships I have, even being a mother, like the relationship dynamic I have with my kids. Like, it just feels like it's a really broad truth that isn't isolated to one type of relationship or one type of, you know, interaction we have as humans on this planet.
Well, and the bridge, I feel like we always talk about, like, what's the bridge from one conversation to the next or one chapter to the next or, you know, whatever it is that we're working on. And I feel like that bridge, when we're thinking about the last episode about, you know, there she is and reconstruction and returning to ourselves. And really it's that safety is the slow journey back to ourselves is about trust, right? So it's trusting ourselves. And then eventually it really starts to bleed into how we trust others. And I think one of the things that I just keep seeing again and again and again in every conversation I'm having, in so many messages, really over time, not even just related to the podcast, but I would say over the past couple of years, the thing that keeps coming up the most in my conversation with other women, whether it's close friends, you know, Instagram friends, you know, people that I don't know very well, people that I've known for decades, is this idea of how we find each other. And, you know, so we talk a lot already about finding ourselves and coming home to ourselves, return to self. But then that next piece is, okay, what then? What's next? Well, how do we find each other, right? Because it looks really great, right? When you're online or you're seeing photos or you're hearing stories from your friends or your coworkers about all the fun things that they're doing with their people, right? Whoever those people are, or you're hearing about the group chat and you don't have a group chat, or you don't have a group to go on a girls' trip with. Or you don't have that. You're not the one at the big table at the restaurant, you know, with all of the women sitting around at happy hour. Maybe you're just the one who's sitting with that one friend. Or maybe you're just the one who's in the one person group chat, right? And it's easy to feel like, how do I find that? And I think that one of the things I just want to speak to is, I guess I just kind of want to open up the conversation, is how I think we've all been there in some way, shape, or form. And we've all had those moments where we're wondering, shit, how am I going to find my people? And a lot of times it's because we've left a community, or because a season of our life has come to a close, or, you know, so, I mean, we can fill in those blanks with those variables, and for all of us, it's going to be different and look different. But I really feel like there is some common universal experience that we are sensing as women of a certain age, where by this time in life, we've experienced some shit, right? Like we've gone through some cycles. We've seen some things. We've lived some life, and not all of it has been pretty. In fact, I would argue a lot of it has not been pretty. So I don't know. I guess I just kind of want to open that up because I just think it's what, as you say, it's the water that we're swimming in right now. It's the conversations we're having. It's the things that it's the questions we're being asked. So I don't know. What do you have to say about that? What do you think?
Well, I have a lot to say.
I know you do.
No one's surprised by that. I have a lot of thoughts and lots of things. But I mean, as you know so well, and I write about it in Skies, and you know, it's been a significant part, I think, of, even if we're touching on the conversations we've had in the past about deconstruction and phantom faith and kind of that whole process of returning to self, is the deep grief of losing those people that were with you for that time, and then recognizing that relationship, that friendship is not necessarily what's going to walk you through where you are now or where you're headed, and allowing that to be true, that there's a real grief in that. And we talk about romantic breakups, but there's also the friendship breakup, and it's a very significant wound. And I know for me, when I think back to that time when there was this, a few significant friendships that I had to let go of in order to take care of myself, in order to allow myself to be safe for myself. And that was a really confusing time and experience, because I really hadn't experienced almost like the active dissolving of a friendship that wasn't because of some big issue that happened, or some problem, or some dynamic, or even something out of our control. It was really this like self-led, well-informed decision. And that took, there's a responsibility in that I carried, because that's me making that decision and initiating that break. That was painful. And I found myself unsure how to talk about it with others, with anyone, because I hadn't experienced anyone talking about it with me. It was like, am I the only one who's gone through this type of breakup or this type of loss, who's had to navigate these types of really complicated and confusing feelings? And I know I'm not the only one, right? I mean, I know that I'm not, but it's not something that I found, at least up until that point, that was a conversation that was being had, in many spaces. And I think that the vulnerability of allowing someone into your life, it holds a different weight when you've been through a grief like that, where you've had the loss of a friendship, whether you've been the one to initiate that loss or whether someone else has. There's a risk it's always been there. It's the risk of vulnerability. It's true all the time. But until I'd experienced the heartbreak of it, I hadn't really been face to face with the vulnerability of friendship. Up until that point, it's the friendships that you have that are just, playground, elementary school, easy, high school, college. It's all built in. It's like it's sort of my experience was that I took a lot of that for granted, because it felt just very organic and built in. I didn't have to think about it. I wasn't thinking about, are these going to be my friends forever? I think little girl me was like, of course they're going to be my friends forever, because forever feels like, impossible. It's just, of course. And once I'd gone through the very significant pain of having to walk away from some friendships, people that I love dearly and people that I still love dearly, when I started to think about like future friendships, when I started to get to a point where I'm like, who are the people? Where are my people? How do I find my people? Yeah. That vulnerability became like a fear. It was like, I don't want to feel that way ever again. I don't ever want to have to go through that again. And so I think that's a huge piece of it too, is as we get older, we recognize more of the risk and the I don't know, it's vulnerability, but like of intimacy, which on a friendship level is is, I don't know, it's so massive. It's so all encompassing, in our lives, the people that we allow access to us, that they know us in a way that no one else really does, that can hold up the mirrors for us and show us where we're missing the mark, or that can celebrate us when we hit the mark, it's all of it.
So I would just kind of want to camp out here on this for a second, because I feel like there's this, you're talking about how when we're younger, there's all these relationships that are built in. I love that because it's so true. I mean, and even when early professional years, or early motherhood years, there's so many relationships that, like you said, that we take for granted, or they're just built in, or they just kind of graft themselves into our lives, and they just are. But the shift that I feel like you're speaking to, when you're talking about dissolving certain friendships, and you're talking about the grief of that, or allowing the vulnerability or choosing the vulnerability of other friendships or new friendships, it's that's agency. That's what I'm hearing, is the agency and the consent that you're actively participating in, versus the younger years where it's all just kind of happening to you, which is very maiden, right? As opposed to mother, right? But I'm just feeling like that's so interesting, because there is such a shift when we start realizing that we have a say in the relationships in our life, and we get to decide whether or not something is acting on our behalf, or whether or not it's a betrayal of ourselves to stay in a certain friendship. So the brutal grief of dissolving a friendship, I mean, whether it's a break or whether it's a slow disintegration, right? I mean, I can feel it in my body right now. I can feel it. And then we can also feel what it feels like to choose, to pick another person on purpose.
Yeah.
Over and over again, to actively choose another friendship and to build into that, with agency. So I don't know. I just kind of, I just feel like that's a beautiful juxtaposition. And I don't think it's, there's so much nuance and in between. I don't think it's always either or, but that just seems like there's a difference between those two things. And I also think that's a part of the difference between when we're younger and when we're a little bit older and wiser, and when we get to start choosing ourselves more actively, give ourselves that permission. So that's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, we know ourselves better, I would hope. We've had a little more life to live to get to know ourselves better, and to choose intentionally to allow people that have access to us and to know us, who know themselves well, who've done their work to know themselves, who are safe for themselves first. And that, I think, protects a friendship from a lot of codependency, because this has not become a friendship where it's give and get. It's, it's what can I take from you? Or even if it's on a subconscious level, if we haven't made ourselves safe for us, we're not necessarily even aware that we're unsafe. We wouldn't actively be choosing to be unsafe for ourselves, right? It just is, there's this work that still needs to be done internally. And I do think that's a lifelong work. I don't think we ever get to a point where we're like, now I'm safe. It's I've decided it's a lifelong work, but it's when we choose to run parallel with someone who's doing that lifelong work as well, right? Those types of friendships where they want as we've referenced so often, they want more of you. They want you
Yeah.
more free and more alive and more honest and more willing to be imperfect and make mistakes, and who also recognize it's with a deep sense of security, I think, and confidence in self to be able to not take it personally when the coffee date gets canceled 5 times because the kids are sick and they've got soccer practice and they've got whatever, or because the business trip means you've got to be out of town and you just can't see each other and it's been a couple of months. And those friendships where you can kind of pick back up, or where there's not punishment, there's not consequence for being, honest and not managing that dynamic. Those friendships, I think, are what I find myself gravitating toward at this stage of my life, partially just out of necessity. Like, I just don't have the margin right now, right, to have like the types of friendships maybe I was able to carry in college when I had a lot more free time and energy and capacity, but also didn't know myself super well yet either.
Right.
Which, of course, like that's the time of your life where you're learning who you are as you're learning your place in the world and how everything is going to unfold. It's not at all like it's just like very age appropriate. That's very appropriate. This is not a knock toward like, although sometimes I'm like, if I could have known so much of this at that stage of my life, like how much heartache could I have avoided, or at least been more prepared for, to navigate. But yeah, the friendships, the people that I bring into my life now are very intentionally there. They're women really who are safe and honest. And, one thing I was thinking about is when I really sort of sat down and was like, what are some of those elements that are consistent, like in the friendships that are closest to me? And the word ritual came to mind, like, which I just love. I love the idea of ritual in general. Like, I just love the practice of intention. But within our friendships, there's, even for you and I, there's the lighting of the candles, there's the with you, there's the weekly check-ins, and we live, on opposite ends of the country pretty much, but the closeness is there. I think part of it is because we've built these rituals into our friendship.
Yeah.
And they hold high value for both of us. And when I think about other friendships I have, it's the same thing. It's like that, let's go for a walk around the ponds, it's let's go walk in a thunderstorm in the middle of the night. Like, let's do a Zoom. And even if it's 4 weeks out, here's the random weird time that we can make it work. We do it. Yep. And we do the group chats, the check-ins, and it's what does the friendship need in order to be thriving? And it looks a lot like ritual to me when I examine my friendships. So yeah,
and they're all different, and they all get to have their different ways and their different rituals and their different little almost like a talisman, right? Almost like it's a little marker of that relationship or that season in life that we get to keep coming back to, whether it's a phrase or a symbol or, a practice. I just keep feeling like when I think about friendships now and, friendships when we were younger, I think about how often I would feel like it was my job to fix a friendship. And what I love about friendship now is I've let myself off the hook. And I feel like my friendships now are so much deeper, that there is so much more intentional, beautiful, like visceral participation, right? Like being being called in to something, being invited to bring more of myself to something. And yet there is also this ease and simplicity and beauty that comes with such a deep level of trust because of the trust that I now have with myself as well as someone else who has done that work in themselves. So I feel like there's a mirroring that happens where on some level, the friendship is so much more, and on another level, the friendship is so much easier. And then I get to extend that to other people where I just no longer expect everybody to be everything to everyone. You know, like you can have friends that you are texting in the dark of the night and they are lighting the candle in the hardest moments. And you can have other friends that you can just have a good time with. And that's okay. Like it can be that easy. It can be that simple. Everybody does not have to be everything to all people, right? And I just feel like when we can let each other off the hook about what we're supposed to be for each other, we just get to be ourselves. And we get to see and value each other for the little intricacies and the little bits of beauty that we bring to the table. And sometimes that's maybe just humor, or sometimes that's maybe just a really great night out. And other times it's going to be really deep and really consistent for a really, really long time. And I don't know. I have felt, and I also write about a loss of friendship in skies. And at the time, I mean, that chapter, it's still hard for me to read. At the time, I don't know. I don't know if I had ever experienced anything harder. I don't know if I'd ever experienced a more surprising, more devastating loss. Mm-hmm. And yet there was a shift in me that let myself off the hook that it wasn't mine to fix. We both came up through systems where, you got to Matthew 18 somebody. You got to confront a situation. You got to involve other people. You got to bring somebody to account. You have to oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But even just thinking about that and remembering the expectations and requirements of problem solving or resolution or reconciliation, that's just exhausting and was often so traumatic in and of itself. But in that situation for me, when that loss of community was so surprising and so sudden and felt like such betrayal, and then I didn't rush to fix it. I just let it be. Mm-hmm. And I let it breathe, and I let myself breathe. And something that you said earlier, Sarah, you said that you said something about if you had stayed in that friendship, you wouldn't have been safe enough in yourself to change or be honest, or you had mentioned something to that effect. And I feel like the same is true for me. If I would have forced resolution or some sort of reconciliation or anything within that community, I don't think I would have been able to tell myself the truth about my own life as quickly or as ruthlessly as I did in the season that followed. And so I was able to oddly really value the room and the space that losing those relationships gave me. And I grew to be able to almost honor the space that then existed, where it wasn't my bridge to build. It wasn't mine to fix. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even about forgiveness for me. My whole, my ideas on forgiveness have changed dramatically. And I just have felt such freedom from that. I don't even feel a requirement to worry about forgiveness. I feel like I get to grow and heal and become through that situation, and that feels like enough. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness feels like this thing about relationships that always felt like this like mantle of responsibility and all these rules and everything. And I don't know, that's one of the things that I set down and I've yet to pick back up. But when it comes to then these friendships that we get to exercise agency and choose and build into and sow, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm just thinking of you with your feet in the mud in your backyard and your hands in the dirt in the soil in your garden, and we get to be really intentional about the people who we choose. It happens to us, but we also happen to them, and it's been a beautifully slow process. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I just will forever come back to is Dr. Estés and her quote about how you can't find your pack until you howl. Yeah. And finding your pack, our pack is not always cohesive, right? As wolves, like the howling is not when we're on the hunt. As wolves, the howling is when we're finding each other. It's the flares we're sending up. It's the bonfires on the bluff. It's the lighting of our candle. It's the raising of our torch saying, I see you from a distance, from a long way off. And that howling, that being more of ourselves and sharing more of ourselves with the people around us, with the world at large, whatever, like slowly, other people start to howl back. And slowly, we start to find each other out in the wilderness, out in the wild. Mm-hmm. And damn, I wish it didn't take so long. But it does. It takes the time it takes, right?
My experience with friendships and relationships is just, it's impossible to separate from my history within the church and within religion. Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. I so deeply was ingrained with this assumption that, you've got these friendships and they're supposed to be like your second family, and it becomes very enmeshed very quickly. And there's something really beautiful when I look back on my like early motherhood years, my early marriage years, like having other young marrieds, having other young parents mm-hmm. that were figuring it out too, that we could do play dates with and walks to the park and all the things, those shared dinners together, and the kids were like cousins. There's something really, really beautiful about that. Yeah. And that pressure, when I look at it from the outside, that your friendships are supposed to be that enmeshed with your daily life, and that is what a successful friendship looks like. And anything other than that is, quite frankly, a project to win over, right? That was so much of it was like, wow, like get them to your small group, or get them plugged in, or get them to come on a Sunday, or you're hanging out with them, but is there an ulterior motive? Because probably, mm-hmm. right? And it's not even. So much of this is I'm able to say this now because I'm aware of it now. So much of it I wasn't aware of in the moment, and it was coming from truly genuine, earnest place, this desire for friendship. But I think what I understood friendship to be was largely informed by the system that I was participating in at the time. Yeah. And coming out of that system has it's taken the pressure off. Every person that I know is either supposed to be this deep lifelong friend that we're going to walk through everything together, taking the pressure off that type of expectation, mm-hmm. allowing me to be who I am, allowing the people that I meet to be who they are, and allowing it to be less as you say, less high stakes, allowing it to be what it is versus having some even unknown, unspoken agenda to the friendship that it's got to look this way to be successful or to be good or to be enough. And there's just so many more beautiful experiences I've had in my I guess later midlife years now, like where because of the freedom that I feel to be who I am encountering so much more of the people in my life because they are allowed to be who they are too. Right?
Yeah.
There's a richness and a depth to that type of friendship that is really at this point all I'm interested in. Okay. I think we have less time. We have less energy. Like we just get a little more selective.
I'm too tired for anything else.
Yeah. But I think so much of the framing of what friendship and life together and community means and looks like was for me came out. It was just another thing I had to deconstruct, right? It's another thing I had to untangle from and really figure out, what do I actually think? What do I actually want?
Yep.
What, and then how do I go about that? Yeah. And I think too, like part of what I have learned in the beautiful friendships that I have now is it's okay for there to be disruption. It's okay for there to be conflict. It's okay for there to be accountability that feels messy and weird and, complicated. It's okay that the first sign of incongruence doesn't automatically mean the friendship's over or there's failure or you can't practice conflict resolution or confrontation or just like that, all of that. Like when you look at it as like we get to practice and learn how to be more human together, and it's less the second you make a mistake, it's over, or there's punishment, or there's consequences, which sadly, truly, I did experience in some of my significant friendships in my earlier years.
Or even if you change, like even the friendships where you're not allowed to become anything other than who you were when the friendship began, right? So like, especially when we're talking about within religious community, when you enter into a friendship, it's really, really heartbreaking to then realize how contractual that relationship was when your faith or your perspectives or your politics or fill in the blank, begins to change, begins to evolve, and you become more of who you are. And that breaks some unspoken rule, the unspoken contract, the agreement, as you call it. There's this silent agreement that we're friends because we agree on these specific things. And if you change and you start to think differently, we can no longer be friends. And it's like, I can't even tell you how many times I just felt naive for feeling surprised by that, at how blatant it was, that the friendship ended because my thoughts on something specific began to evolve, that I began to become more honest, more open, more true with myself, and that was that broke the agreement.
Yeah.
So the beauty of friendship that is built on an expectation that we will become, that we will evolve, that we will change and become more and more of ourselves. And we don't yet know what that full expression is going to be. And that is what the friendship expects.
Yeah.
The freedom of that, the ease, the peace, and the rest in that. Like that's a nervous system regulator.
For sure.
Relationship like that.
Yeah. It's like a deep inhale and a deep exhale. It's like, whew.
Yeah.
It's safety. It's a speaking to safety.
Yeah.
Yeah. I And I do. I love what you brought up about howling to find your pack and how it's this way of finding each other, because I think it also, back to your point earlier, it speaks to agency. It's on us to howl on our own behalf. And it's not waiting around for the pack to find you, right? It's really the vulnerability of saying, I want that. I want to be found. I want to be found. I want to seek it out.
I want to be found. Oh,
I know. It makes me kind of teary. I
don't
know. I think because it's like so vulnerable, right? That's what that is. It's saying I want. I mean, back to like conversations we've had time and again, how scary it is to say I want anything, right? It's so wrapped up in so many things. Our poor little sweet selves.
Because to howl and to say that I want that is like, the subtext is I'm afraid. I'm afraid someone won't howl back. I'm afraid I'll be alone. I'm afraid I'll get betrayed again. Or I'm afraid that, you know, I'm just afraid. Like, I think that's the really like tiny, quiet, like truest core of that is like that. At first, the howl is just like this little yip, you know. It's just this little, like, it's just this little peep. It's not this big robust song into the night that everyone can hear and it's artistic and grand and majestic. It's not. At first, it's just like, hey, is anybody out there? Like, it's just really little and fragile and vulnerable, and your voice is shaking and your knees are quaking, and it's hard and scary, and I just get teary-eyed thinking about it.
I know, it's so brave. We're a mess.
It's just like the littlest wolf.
Oh no. Oh no, we're doing it. We're doing the
oh my
thing
gosh.
We're crying and laughing.
We're spiraling. We're spiraling. It's just the littlest wolf on the mountain.
The littlest wolf. I love that little wolf. I love that.
Because we've been her.
I know. And I just have so much tenderness for the courage and honesty that it requires to open your mouth the first time and say, I want and I need, and to let that be okay. It's incredibly brave. And I think because you and I and so many people we know have walked through those really painful points on the map of our friendships with various people over the years, that even more so compounds the courage to try again or to seek it again. It's just so beautiful. And I think that also speaks to when you do hear the howl back in the distance, you recognize that is someone who knows that sound, and most likely is also using their own courage to open their mouth. And whether it's their first time howling as well, or they're out there with their pack and they're like, come with me, like we've got you, you know, that creates immediately a sense of understanding and safety, I think.
You've been listening to Spiritual Pyro with Sarah Carter and Corinne Shark on the 1C Story Network. For more information about this and all of our stories, please visit just1c.com. That's JUSTONEC.com.
Let's start over.
That was terrible.
Cut. Take 2.
The 1C Story Network, for the love of stories.